Welcome to Ukrainian Minute. Today we're going to dive into some weird deaths that have been happening around Kyiv. The most recent death happened this past Wednesday evening when Oleg Kalashnikov, a former Ukrainian parliament member in the Party of Regions, was found dead in his home in Kyiv. Death was due to a gunshot wound. This is one of a string of weird deaths that have been occurring in the past few months. His death is currently under investigation, but investigators think that it is politically motivated, as Kalashnikov was one of the main organizers of anti-Maidan, was always a supporter of Putin and against the Maidan movement. Some of the other deaths that happened in the past few months, and allow me to reiterate them in a chronological order, was January 29th, when former chairman of Kharkiv regional government, Oleksiy Kolesnik, was found hanged. On February 24th, former Party of Regions member Stanislav Melnik died with a gunshot wound, and that one was considered to be a suicide. A day later, on the 25th, and a few hours before he was put on trial, the mayor of Melitopol, Serhiy Volter, was found hung as well. There was no suicide involved in that one. And the day after that, the deputy chief of the Melitopol police was found dead in his garage. That same day, former member of parliament and ex-chairman of Zaporizhzhia Regional State Administration was found dead with a gun wound to his neck, and that one is also being considered a suicide. And lastly, on February 28th and 14th, two former members of Party of Regions fell from their windows of their respective apartments to death. So maybe former Party of Regions or former parliamentary members are growing a conscience and can't live with themselves. Maybe there are a few very weird deaths and murders involved. We'll see what the investigations will lead to. But until then, it's very interesting to see such very weird, tragic, and almost surreal events happening within Parliament today. Next in news is nothing new, but a bit amusing. President Putin spoke directly to Russian audience, well, kind of. People called in, and over a teleprompter, they got a chance to ask the president a few questions regarding the state of events in the country and the war and his response to certain things. So President Putin basically made three main points within his conversation with the people. One of which was President Putin condemned Kyiv for introducing an economic blockade to the rebel-held areas in Ukraine. The rebel-held areas are currently struggling. Many people are displaced, salaries are cut off, and there's very little access to Ukraine or any surrounding areas. He also stated that we probably will never know who ordered the murder of Boris Nemtsov, and we're just going to have to live with that. No surprise there. And that the export of S-300 defense missiles into Iran will not in any way threaten Israel, and that it is a way to show Iran their support and to reach a compromise with them in their continued negotiations over their nuclear program. This decision has been viewed very critically by most Western countries and many people within Russia as well, but that is his explanation for his cooperation with Iran. And finally, there were actually some very interesting callers that called in of farmers who are struggling to get by in Russia, and they were asking, when will the economy in Russia get better? And Putin replied that he expects the ruble to bounce back within the next 2 years and the economy to turn around within the next 2 years. But the farmer, one of which was not very convinced, asked if that was in fact true or if statistics were being made up. which is actually a really forward and interesting question and some honesty that you don't often see on Russian television. But Putin was confident in his statistics and said that he will look into increasing subsidies to farmers who are especially struggling right now with the economic downturn in Russia. And lastly, just a little fun quote for you guys. At the annual security conference in Moscow that was held last Thursday, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu blamed the U.S. for everything that's going on and all the instability in Ukraine. He stated, and I quote, "The United States and its allies have crossed all possible lines in their drive to bring Kyiv into their orbit. That could not have failed to trigger our reaction." So basically saying that when Yanukovych failed to sign the EU Trade Association Agreement with the EU, that in itself triggered a reaction from the West, which then triggered a counter-reaction from Moscow. And that is all for today. Sorry for the Russian-centric news. It was just very interesting to hear some of the opinions that we've been hearing. But that's all for now. Have a great day and visit us on UAPOST.US for any further news.